I guess the best way that I could put it to you was it was one of the most shocking things that I ever went through my entire life. Like it was really, really shocking. So the breakup that I went through was with like probably the closest girl I've ever been with in my life. We were together for 3 years, and we broke up exactly when the Julien thing was happening. So I was getting hit like from every fucking angle at that point. It was like really, really shocking. So while it was happening, I was having experiences where I'd wake up in the middle of the night and it would be like my head was spinning. Like literally it was like my head was spinning in circles, like I got punched in the head. It was a very, very strange experience. Any of you guys ever had that after a breakup before? Where it hits you really hard? Okay. Well, this was hitting me, it was kind of coming at me all at once, right? So it was very, it was really, really, really shocking. And what I found was that after it, after all was said and done, it was kind of like walking around in a nightmare for like a number of months, like this nightmare that just wouldn't end. Like you wake up and it's like the whole world's exploded and no one can tell but you. It's almost like this nuclear bomb went off and nobody can tell but you. And it's interesting, like you go through that and then you slowly pull it back together. But what's weird is that since that happened, it's like my brain works differently now. I almost feel like a different person. It's almost like the person that I was before this is dead, or maybe the remnants that were actually positive are still there. And the thing that I find very curious about it is I like what's happened so much that it disturbs me that other people don't have similar experiences to that. But it almost makes me wonder how we could like structure society that people could have those trials and tribulations, but like in a controlled way, so that most of society wouldn't be like these dipshits running around bitching about nonsense, if you know what I'm saying, right? And so it's kind of funny, like basically in society, you ever read the book Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb? Is it Taleb Nassim or Nassim Taleb? Well, who here's ever read that? Okay, well that's a great book. And the basic summary of it is that we actually benefit from disorder. So systems actually benefit from disorder. Chaos actually creates disorder, and then the system basically recreates itself in a more organized way in order to be adaptive. So one of the things that I realized, like even for yourselves, what we're trying to teach you with the pickup stuff is we're actually trying to trigger you to have these chaotic and shocking experiences where your brain can keep reordering itself in a clearer way. Does that make sense? Yeah. So have any of you noticed that since you've been doing the stuff that we teach here, that you're actually getting mentally stronger? Anybody here having experiences like that? Yes. Okay. Now, do you ever actually look at people who are not gaining in that mental strength and feel almost like you missed a bus that could have hit you, where you think to yourself, I would hate to be that person? Yes. It's funny that you get that response, right? Like you think to yourself, what if you never had clicked on that YouTube video or read the book The Game or whatever else it is, right? And then you think of what kind of person you'd be if you had never found this stuff. Or I think of what kind of person I'd be if I hadn't had some of those like difficult or challenging things happen. And it's frightening to me because when I look at my state of consciousness now compared to what it was before, it would be like a living hell to go back to what it was before compared to what it is now. And I feel like that process continues to evolve over a long period of time. And it's got me thinking a lot about, even with what I teach, and how I want guys to be challenged to push through these chaotic situations, even that might kind of fuck them up a little bit, but actually get to experience that so they can grow. But it's also challenging even as a company or organization, because as you grow, what winds up happening is that you say that you give people missions or tasks where it kind of might fuck them up a little bit, but they'll come out stronger at the other end. There's gonna be people who it's a little bit too heavy for them. And because it's too heavy, they can get pissed off and they can feel like, they got led down a wrong path. Basically just, kind of whiners, if we're being honest, right? But, just certain people, they can't deal with it. So it's sort of interesting to go through that. But I thought Julien could maybe share a little bit about his experience, or how he changed, what his perception of reality was changed. Because I've just seen him, Julien is almost like a completely different person to me now, even seeing him now. I feel like I'm almost just getting to re-know the guy. So it's almost like the core is still there, the good stuff is still there, but it kind of burns away the impurity. It's almost like if you put something in this super hot stove and it just burns away anything that shouldn't be there, and then it just comes out purified or cleansed or something. It's a very bizarre experience. So maybe you could talk about it a little bit, maybe help people to understand it too.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to think how to structure it. The first thing I would say is what I mentioned before, where it's you have to embrace the emotional trauma. Okay, linking it to Anti-Fragile. It's that emotional trauma, that pain, whatever hits you on a deep, deep level, And it could be negatively, but it could also be positively. That's when it really, like, the internals are changing. That's what you want to seek out. It's like those instances where, say, a girl doesn't like you. She's like, well, no, have a great night. And you're just like crushed. Like that, you really have to like let it seep in. And something a lot of guys do is like you either avoid it or you just resist it. Or yeah, it's like you just don't let it take over. And one thing I've been telling for years now is like, let it take over. That's what changes you. It's those traumatic experiences. Like that's what hardens you. That's, as you mentioned, like you get broken down and you build back up stronger. It's like if you're working out, you're not going to stop when the pain starts. That's when you grow. Okay, so that there is what you're doing with game, and that there's something that I've always believed in that I realized earlier on. Now there's those micro instances where you're going out and experience this, say, in social interactions, social pressure, you know, getting your ego destroyed, if you will, like just, again, burning away the impurities. And then there's like big events. And for me, for the big ones, I really have two. The first one was when I moved to Los Angeles the first time, and that was just, again, snapping out of social conditioning. I quit university, moved to Los Angeles, and everyone thought, what the fuck are you doing? It's like my family was like disowned. We're good now, but for a period of time. And that was like, it felt like suicide, like in a way. It was like jumping off a cliff. And this one here is the second big one, and the biggest, obviously. And it's literally the same exact feeling. So basically when everything started popping, the first thing I noticed is you see all these like tweets. I don't know if you guys followed, it would be like every second, it'd be like 10 tweets. And at first I was like, oh, that's weird. And it just started building and building. And the first big challenge is because there are so many tweets saying you're this person, there are now two narratives. Okay, and we all have a certain narrative of who we are. So beforehand I was like, you know, I'm this person, this is what I do, this is what I believe, this is the type of person I am. We all have a story, so do you. Now what happens is, say you take the entire world, for example, and they start telling you, you're not that person, you're this person. You're this person. And even though it's not true, because there are so many, they're so certain and they're so congruent in what they're saying, it's very hard to resist the urge to be like, am I this person? Like, am I? Like imagine something like the entire world's like, dude, you're now him. This is now your name. You're like, is it my name? What? It's like, there's a little bit of that doubt. And what happens, and I'll explain this on multiple layers, is usually in these instances, and you can read more about it in a book like, say, the title's quite appropriate, So You've Been Publicly Shamed by John Ronson, either the narrative takes over, and in many cases it does, and the result is, you know, out there as it is people commit suicide. Like in these public shamings, it's like a good like 50% plus commit suicide because they just can't deal with it. It's like they take on the other narrative and they're just dragged down, done. And the key is your narrative, no matter how strong you think it is, will never be strong enough to counter it. You have to rewrite a new one based on core values that just overwrites it all. And that's what I had to do. So instead of just like resisting it or fighting back with mine, I'm like, okay, what can I learn from this? And that's something you learn too, is like when everything's stripped away from you, be it your image, like friendships, like everything was like taken away, you're relied with yourself, and it's like, what is it that I really care about? And again, losing everything, you realize like, oh, I care about this. So you know what those core values are. And this is actually what I did, like with my content now, with everything. It's like I just rewrite a stronger narrative based on those core values.
Yeah, you go, like under these situations, what it comes down to is you continually go back to core values. You keep drilling back. What are my core values? What do I actually stand for? What do I actually care about? Because you get distracted with things that you don't really care about. This is like whenever you have, say, like a near-death experience, like that time that I got hit. You guys might have heard the story where 4 days after I got my baby mama pregnant, I got hit by a car and was like kind of mostly in bed for about 2 months. And as you're lying there thinking you're dying, which at that time I thought I did. Some of you guys might not have heard this story. I got T-boned essentially 4 days after I got the mom I kissed pregnant by accident. What happened was I got hit really hard, and I actually thought I was going to die because I couldn't breathe and I had blood all over me, and the car was like totaled. And you sit there looking at all these distractions that you had, and you feel so fucking stupid. Like you just sit there, you're just like, oh God, I was so stupid. Like, you feel ridiculous at just how much mental energy that you exerted into this fucking nonsense. Like, what did this person think of me? What did this person say? Oh, dude's like this. Oh my God, I'm at the Lakers game. Did I get the seats that I wanted? I can't see from this seat. I can't see Kobe's sweat bead from this fucking seat. You know, like little like stupid shit like that. And like all this stupid shit. And particularly, I don't know if you even felt this. For me, it was like, when you're at that moment, you start thinking like anything that I did that wasn't win-win, I'm fucking disgusted with myself. Like as I sat there, like in my case, like thinking I was gonna die when I got hit by the car, and I'm like fucking bleeding and shit. I can't even breathe, and I'm like coming in and out of consciousness. I actually like obviously was okay, but at the time I didn't know because I was so in shock. You start thinking like anything that I didn't do or anything that I did that wasn't completely win-win and contributive, oh my fucking God, do I ever fucking regret that? Like, how fucking blind was I? And it was funny too, because right before his media thing happened, you know, I remember somebody was saying to me, like, they were talking about what a true apology is. And they were saying it's like when somebody is like, it was my buddy actually, Jesse. And he's like, you know, with a real apology, like with like a really deep apology, somebody might say something like, you know, I've been down a dark path and I was so blind and I was walking down this path, and like they're just like palms up, just like at the mercy, like just like, I was on a dark path. I was on a dark path. Oh God, what have I done? What have I done? You know, like shit like that. And I remember thinking, I was like, damn, that sounds fucked up. I was like, what would that be like to be the person who like experienced that? I was like, that sounds like kind of ridiculous. Like, what would you do that would make you feel that way? You know? And I think like, you know, in Julian's case, for example, like whatever ridiculous cartoon character that the media created that was just your typical media cycle, like a cartoon character, well, that's just retarded, right? Like I don't think he's sitting there thinking like, I am the cartoon character, you know, because even in the same video that they were cutting of him, you can find all these cuts where he's like, be gentle to girls, I'm kidding, like treat them nice. Like he's got tons of like cuts like this. It's not what he's doing at all, right? At all.
I talk about this in many videos. It's like if you ever see me saying something obnoxious, like even did you just go to the bathroom? It's never in a way to hurt the girl emotionally. Okay, it's always like in a playfully provocative way. So notice too how you're like so happy. You're like, look how you demean them. That's like the worst frame ever. It's like you do that. No, of course the girl's gonna be pissed off. Be nice. The girl's like gentle. It's never from a place like trying to hurt the girl. Do that, no one will want to be around you.
Look, she's tensing it. Like, look at this. You need to be aware, very aware, dude. Less grabby, less violent, less over-dominating. Stop being physical. Yeah. It doesn't mean more. More is just gonna make it worse. Yeah. Start being aware, right? Grabby, when you're like needy grabby, cut the habit.
But at the same time, you know, for him, he might sit there thinking like, you know, say maybe like looking at his Twitter, and maybe what, like, and I'm kind of speaking for you here, and you could expand on this, but like say his Twitter, right? It's pretty fucking funny, like a lot of the shit that he's saying, because he's using like dark humor similar to say comedians, right? It's pretty fucking funny. And that's cool, it's funny. But at the same time, it's like, as we've kind of grown, because remember too, like people forget this, when me and Julien first were like, even like when he first came on, our average free tour that we were doing is like 12 people. Back in the day, you know, I think like, you know, maybe 50 people, maybe the odd 90 person one, but a lot of them are like 13, 14 people. So we're just doing like these like stupid little inside jokes. We're kind of just clowning. But all of a sudden, you know, we're sitting in New York with like, you know, almost like 1,000 people in the crowd. And they're actually listening to what the fuck we say, and they're looking at it really closely. So it's like, yeah, it's cool to clown around. It's funny. But why are you even putting energy around shit that's dark when you could actually be pushing people towards the light? And what you realize is that And it's always cool to clown around. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you guys see my videos. I clown around like a fucking retard half the time anyway. But the core focus of it is like, what do you want to be moving people towards? And it's almost like as you go up in your own life, so I want you to think about your own life for a minute. As you grow in responsibility and influence, think of it almost like a spaceship, where that spaceship can have little holes in its integrity as maybe like you're like lower to the ground, for example. I don't know if you really could, but let's just say in theory. But once you're in like deep fucking space, any little hole in that ship is just gonna fuck shit up. It's gonna have like dramatic consequences because the pressure is tighter. So what happened with me and him was like, as we're growing, we needed to actually deepen our roots. Like we need to get more on point with what we're doing because our influence is getting like out of control. And you don't even realize it as it's happening, because like me and him, as we're fucking like getting bigger, everywhere we walk down the street, people are coming up to us. Like my life is like hilarious, dude. It's like being fucking like Vinny Chase from Entourage or some shit. Obviously not, obviously like the dorky like Star Trek character version, but you know, it's like everywhere I go, people are like yelling out their car, like Tyler, Tyler, like everywhere I go, people like giving me props, like, dude, I'm pulling into my fucking house, people like recognize me, like everywhere I go. Same thing with him. So it's like you're growing in influence, and you've got to think to yourself, how are you using that influence? And then you think to yourself, like, what am I wasting my time with? Like, what am I actually doing? So even like in my case, and I'd like you to continue with what you're talking about, but I want to draw my own parallels. Even like with, say, like my girlfriend, right? You know, I remember when we broke up, you know, there's a bunch of shit that she was pissed about because she dumped me. And on one level, I mean, it was almost similar to like what he experienced, where, you know, the things that she's mad about, she's just mad at the time. Like her and I have since become like really good friends. Like her and I are still very close. And, you know, now she's like, you're the best boyfriend I ever had in my life, you know, upon, you know, reflection and things like that. But at the time, she was really pissed, and she was pissed enough to leave. And the things that she was pissed about, it's not as though it was really the way she's saying it. Because, you know, when people are angry, you know, you get really mad and it kind of goes in a certain way. But I'm still looking at it and I'm going, this was like the best woman I met in my fucking life. And what did I waste my time doing with her? Like a lot of these things that had pissed her off. And even though like how mad she was not necessarily what really, like that in her moment of anger, to get enough leverage to leave, that's not necessarily a balanced perspective of what's going on. But there's still things in it where you ask yourself, is this the person that I want to be? And it was the same thing like with Julien, like when we were looking at like our content, and yeah, it's good to be fun, it's good to clown, but we still look at it as like, is that what we actually want to do? And I know that even like with my breakup, I kind of had that moment of like, what the fuck did I do? You know, because what happens is that you snap out of it, right? It's like if you drove the person that you care about the most in the world to leave, and then you think to yourself, like why did I do that? You know, and it's like, and essentially what it is, and I'd like you to expand even on this maybe. So what I'm going to say here is very nuanced, so try to follow me here, but I'm not really sure, like, how much are you guys relating to this right now? Are you guys able to follow this? If you're being nice to me, maybe? Okay, it's a little bit hard to explain, but what I think happens, this is just my opinion, what I sense was happening, and Julie and I have had like a lot of kind of private conversations about this, so we're kind of just trying to share it with you if you could take something out of it, is, you guys ever read like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle? He calls it like pain body. So pain body, it's almost like this sort of, almost like you have two different types of energy, right? You have like present energy, where you're like in your highest self, and then you have this kind of like dopamine spike energy. You guys know what I'm saying here? It's like it's almost like you're in these like dopamine spikes, right? Like when you're looking at some bullshit on Facebook or Twitter, or you know, getting like little arguments or having these like little self-indulgent thoughts, you do it because you're only human, and it's hard not to, right? You're not like some enlightened person. You know, none of us are sitting in here like enlightened. If you are, please come let me know at the end of the session. I'd love to meet you, but you know, I don't think any of us here are enlightened. But when you're in this mode where you're wasting your time on Facebook or you're wasting your time indulging in bullshit, you kind of know you're fucking up, right? You sort of feel it. You're like, I'm fucking up. It's like when you go eat like a slice of greasy pizza. You know, you're just kind of tired and you're just like, oh, I need to fucking pee, whatever. You know, you just start eating it, right? You know you're fucking up. The planet's not going to explode. It's not the end of the world. But you know you're fucking up. And sometimes what can happen is as you're growing, that energy takes on its own momentum. So it's kind of like this like light level kind of ego energy. And I'm not trying to come across here like any ego is bad and blah, blah. Like I'm not trying to pull that card, okay? I'm not even coming from that place. But there's this kind of like, I'd call it frenetic energy. Do you guys ever feel when you have frenetic energy in you, you're not at peace? So in a lot of ways what can happen is like, say that Julien is looking at like all the fucking people egging him on to like do like fucking crazy shit on say Twitter or in our videos or things like that. You kind of start to feed off that frenetic energy, and then the frenetic energy takes on a life of its own inside your body. Anybody here ever heard of like how candida, once you get like candida growth in your body, can actually motivate you to like eat things that will feed it? Anyone here ever heard that? Is that true? I just heard that somewhere. Yeah, apparently like if you eat food that's like has certain types of like, what is it, like certain type of carbs in it, that then the candida like goes in your body and then it like hijacks your brain to want that food, and then it creates like its own energy momentum. Well, I feel like that happens with that kind of like dopamine spike, frenetic, kind of pain body, kind of unpresent energy. Like it gets its own momentum. And then what happens is like in my case with say the breakup, or you know my shared experience with Julien with what he went through, or in Julien's case with his media fiasco, is it kind of snaps you out of it. Like you wake up, like you wake up and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? what do I care about? Like what are my core values? What do I care about here? And then the only way, because you can't get those dopamine spikes anymore because it's been taken away, and then it kind of recenters you back in core values. And I'm going to expand even deeper on this, but what I think happens is like it's almost like as you're moving up, I think that these things will happen from time to time to kind of recenter you. So I don't know if you could expand on like the shift, because like he has a tangibly different energy or quality about him than he had before this happened. It's been really interesting for me to watch, and I've kind of experienced the same things. So maybe you could expand on any of that, or
Yeah. No, well, building on that too, it's no, it's very similar actually. It's like, with the car crash where you think you're gonna die, it was like you're in that situation, and the thought also was like, well, my life's over. It's like it's all over, and you kind of reflect, and it really is like, what are your core values, and where was it not win-win? And I made a couple videos about this, but basically, it's what is coming from a place of giving versus what is coming from a place of taking. And if you compare it to even interactions with women, if you're going up and you're taking good reactions to feel good, and it's coming from a place of lack and thirst and need, it's not necessarily win-win. It's not going up like, hey, let's generate something, it's let's take something. And that's pretty much what happened. It's like I'd reflect back and I was like, I'm putting all these videos out, and the content's amazing. Changed, again, my life. It changed so many of my clients' lives. It was ridiculous. However, I started kind of adding this little spin on it, where if you watch some of the last few videos, say before everything popped, there wasn't that much actual content. Like just the last few videos, it was pretty much an entire video designed to poke for a reaction, like a girl. It's like an ultimate spike. It's like you're not even doing it to like share fun or like get the girl. You're just doing like what can I take? It's like, what would this caricature public image that I've created, what's the most extreme thing I could do? What would provoke a ton of reactions? And I didn't even care at the time if it was like good. It's like anything that's a reaction. And I started feeding off that more so than what I was originally feeding off when I got into this, which was what can I share and what way can I expand? And it's like seeking those little dopamine highs. It's instead of looking, say, at the Facebook post, it's like, look at the comments. Look what people are saying. What can I shock them next? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And then, of course, the way the world works or the universe works or whatever you believe in, you attract more of that and you just get slapped back into shape. So when everything was like crumbling, I was like, oh, it's like the only thing I did care about, if I could go back to it, was, again, what I started off, like those core values. And you don't need to go too far into like, well, what are core values? For me, and we touched on this before, it's expansion. That's really what it was. It's like, in what way can I expand? In terms of sharing, in terms of helping, in terms of putting myself out there, in terms of expression, that's the expansion. It's the creating something, generating something, versus poking for a certain reaction. So that really shoved me in my face. Like it was like, back to that. And once again, the high is very different. It's not like this extreme rush. It's very, very subtle, but you have to re-addict yourself to that. So that's what I did, with the new channel. And also just destroying every little last piece of ego that I had. Because your ego will sneak up on you. It's like you get, success with women. You come into this, you're like, oh, I want relationships, I want options, chemistry. And suddenly, I'm now a player. Sneaks in. The other one that I experienced is like, okay, I'm talking to all these girls. Then you're launched, say, as an instructor. You're like, I'm now an instructor. So you have to destroy that. And then it just finds all these little ways to sneak up on you. And the last one before the whole pop was, oh yeah, I'm now this caricature. I'm now this, extreme shock marketing, controversial branding type of person. Like, I'm the caricature. I'm not actually me. So destroying that completely. So I don't know if you've watched even some of the new videos. It's like as humble and real as I could possibly make him. And that was something I would actually have a lot of trouble doing even before. It's like, they were all real, but it's always like, what's the twist? It's like, how can I add the caricature? For example, you could say, if you want to say just as neutral as possible, oh, I brought a girl home and we slept together as a way of cementing the interaction. Or, again, adding the caricature twist, instead of saying it that way, I'd be like, and I pulled this slut home and came in her asshole. Same thing, but it's like the twist, and it's like more of like the taking than sharing the content, like what can people learn from this? So there was that there, and that's, again, the way out of it.
And it's not that clowning is bad, by the way. Like you could, like we still clown, right?
It's the place it comes from. It's like
It's where it's coming from.
it's like I can still clown, but it's like just if you're clowning to generate something, it's good. If you're clowning to take something, then it's bad. It's like same in an interaction with a girl. If you're going up trying to say stuff to game the girl, like provoke reactions, it doesn't work. If you provoke it within yourself, and then that transfers on to generate, then it's good. Okay? And as I mentioned before too, a big part of it was like not resisting it so much, because we're so like, it's like a huge part of you literally has to die. And like you're so attached to it, it's like, this is me, this is me. It's like, let it go. You go through like all the different phases, like, you know, denial, resistance, anger, grief, until like full-on acceptance. And as I mentioned before, it's like you really have to like let it take over. Like you can't hide from it, you can't deny it. It's like, let it all take over, let it take you. Like, I mean, this is my view of life. It's like, let it take you, like if you get the rejection, the emotional trauma, let it take over. Get into, like, let it take you to that dark place. For me, this year took me like to the darkest of dark, like I wouldn't even want to know, like the darkest of darkest places. But coming out of that, now it really is like I'm a different person. But you have to go through it all. And
like entire neural networks in your brain, when this fucked up type of thing happens, actually get like shed, I think. Like literally shed. I could feel it, in my case, I could feel it happening. Like I'd wake up and it would feel like someone cracked me in the head and like the room was like just spinning, you know? It's like, it's just like bang, like that. And it's like, you know, and I think your brain, like when you go through these experiences, it's rewiring. But the thing that you got to understand is it goes back to that like Nassim Taleb, is it, I can never remember this guy's fucking spelling in this order. He calls it anti-fragile, if you've never read that. Human beings, the things that make us so adaptable is that we benefit from chaos and disorder. Not enough chaos and disorder to kill you, but there's that old expression, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So when you go through that, what winds up happening is that you shed the impurities really, really dramatically, and it makes it easier to focus. Who here ever read the book The Game? Okay, so I look pretty cool in there, right? Like I look like a fucking amazing, like really charitable, benevolent, skillful, sharp, smart guy, right? Okay, I basically look like a fucking retard. And when that first came out, I was like about, you know, my mid-20s, and not a very sharp or mature guy from my mid-20s. And I remember just having like that, like kind of what he talked about with like that kind of media attention. Well, his media attention is actually far more wider reach than even mine was with the book The Game. But I think The Game was read by a few million people. And it was a really trippy experience because basically RSD at that point was known as like, you know, probably, I mean, in my humble opinion, I think we were viewed as the premier pickup company. And then all of a sudden we're like known as like these fucking retard, like bad guys or something. And I'd work really hard to put out great stuff just like I do today. And all of a sudden, like I'm tagged with that. And I'm in my mid-20s and it was like, holy shit, right? And I think I spent like the next year and a half, and try to follow this because this is where it applies to you. I think I spent the next year and a half continually cycling in my mind about how what was written in the book wasn't fair and it wasn't true and it was stupid and that's not who I am and like all this shit. So it's almost like the ego is trying to reestablish itself. But in situations like that, can it? You got 2 million people that have a perception. Can I change that with like a blog post? You can't change it. So the only way that I ever got out of that after I was like all fucked up from that for like a year and a half was literally just to be like, drop that mental function, like that self-image mental function. So do you guys ever watch, say, infield footage from me and you see me like making out with 2 girls at the same time or doing like these crazy approaches or crazy pulls, and then you think to yourself, where does he get the balls to do that? A lot of that, and this is where it applies to you, comes from letting go of that mental circuitry, like the self-image mental circuitry. So instead what you do is you focus on just the action itself. So the different paradigm that, say, Julien or I might be experiencing that might be different from maybe what you're experiencing, maybe not, to be fair, but I certainly didn't experience that until I'd had these episodes, is that I tend to live out here and not so much in here. It's like when I'm sitting here with you, I'm just taking everything a step at a time. So it's like, oh, here's the dudes, what's up? Yo. I'm not like, do you like this? What are people thinking of this? What are they writing about it? I might be assessing you to try to get a sense if you like it or not because I want to add value, but it's not coming from the, say, paranoid place. And what that does is essentially there's only so much mental energy. So it frees up your mental energy to just do what you're supposed to do. Now, where I find that interesting is that as your mind grows like this, you can get the outcomes that you want in life far more easily and readily without this same inner conflict. Julien and I had talked from the start of when him and I started working together. We were talking about making a major impact, right? Like, I mean, how old were you when we first met?
21.
21, right? So we were talking about what it would take to make a major impact. And, you know, whether that's us working together, whether that's us doing things in our own directions, that, you know, it wasn't the issue. It's just that we're two people who have that shared interest in making an impact. And not just making an impact, but being at our best, you know, just doing what we're capable of doing. And so it's weird because in a certain way, you wish almost to the universe, I want to stop caring what people think. You wish to the universe, I want to get to a place where I can just take the action that I need to take and not be procrastinating or distracted or caught up in petty bullshit. You wish it and wish it and wish it and wish it. And lo and behold, you get what you wish for. But unfortunately, the universe does not always give you what you want, it gives you what you need. So it kind of showed up in the form of these like bizarre reputational things. Like I think between Julien and I, probably we've had like more fucking shit tossed at us that almost any two people sitting on a stage could have had tossed at them, between me with the game, me, you know, associated with Julien with the media thing, Julien's media thing, general online stuff, media stuff. It's kind of crazy, right? And do you guys ever notice that like no matter how much shit gets thrown at us, you just see us on video just laughing and having fun? You ever seen that? We're just like having a ball, right? Like we're just like out on some fucking boat somewhere camping or pimping girls or, you know, just having adventures and having fun. And I think a lot of people look at that and it's like, how the fuck can that guy be doing that with all this shit? They're just having fucking fun. I feel like what's happened is like in a lot of this chaos that's come about is it's almost like empowered us with the mental fortitude and the focus and the return to core values that we need to make that impact. And I don't think either of us even care if we make the impact in this lifetime or if we just leave great content behind that will make the impact in future generations when people look back on it. But I think that we have that potential if we stay focused. You know, if we get lazy or egotistical or, you know, lose, you know, sight on why we're doing it, then, you know, that can obviously change. But the big thing I think that I got thinking about with this even is how can you create experiences for somebody who doesn't have, you know, what Julien or I went through? How can you create those experiences yourself? So, you know, one way you could do it is you could go provoke a feminist outrage with some crazy video, but I don't recommend it. But I could teach you how to do it if you want. But, you know, there's plenty of people ready to jump on the pile if you want to do that. But I don't recommend that. But what do I recommend? I mean, one of the exercises that we used to do on boot camp, but I don't do this anymore because it's too crazy, was like I would literally have dudes like take their shirt off and run down the street being like, I'm free, like going fucking nuts while everybody stared at them. And I can remember when I do that, you get these like crazy like Satori experiences, like you get like this high off of it, you know, and it's kind of weird because I don't know if I want to teach that. Like now RSD is branded as this company that like sends guys to run around with their clothes off like, ah! Like now we can look even weirder, right? But in spite of that, I have to admit, you know, when I've done stuff like that, it was really eye-opening. Or things like even a whole night of pickup where you approach an entire club. And you know like what he was saying where you have this like public perception that maybe you're some kind of dickhead and then you have that narrative that's kind of colliding with your narrative. I think this is the major reason why guys are afraid to go out for a night of pickup. They're terrified that that narrative is going to get fucked with. That narrative of I'm a cool dude, I'm an attractive dude, gets fucked with by all these different rejections and it causes guys to be scared. So that's why I think a lot of, like, it's kind of weird, but a lot of the best dudes that I know have come through pickup. Like, you know, pickup's kind of interesting, right? Because you'll see guys that are in it that, like, you know, can come from different ranges. Guys that are kind of new or dorky, guys that are somewhere in between. But usually those dudes, if they actually persevere when they come out the other side of it, come out as incredible people. And some of the characteristics that I see with guys that study, say, RSD stuff, when I bump into them, if they've been doing it for a long time, they've got a spark in their eyes. I see this a lot. They've just got like this big fat spark in their eyes and they're smiling and they're socially savvy and they're centered and they're not caught up in petty bullshit and they're not brainwashed as much by like, you know, media and this bizarre social conditioning. And you see that a lot in guys that have actually persevered through the journey. But I almost want to start thinking of other types of journeys. I mean, you could even see it in things like really aggressive physical training. there's something about that, right? I mean, neither Julien nor I are super aggressive in fitness, obviously, but I've seen that in periods where I have been, or or with friends of mine that have been, where they just carry themselves like, yo, I've been to motherfucking war, get out the way. You know, you ever been like, say, like when you did a lot of work and you kind of just walk down the street and you have this sense of purpose, like you know that you're doing good things for society or for yourself, which adds value, and it's like, yo, I'm that dude, I'm doing good shit, and you kind of just have this way of carrying yourself. And if people kind of want to say some shit to you, it's like you almost just like look at them and you're like, yo, you know, because you know you're doing good stuff. And it's that pride, right? Like, and not pride like in an ego way, but just like that sense of self-love or sense of self-worth that comes from having gone through chaos and coming out the other end okay, and continually, again, returning to core values, looking at why you got into this. Why did Julie and I get into this? Because we love the dating stuff and we love the personal development stuff and teaching it. Even after my breakup this year, do you know who coached, I mean, did you guys see the video? Who coached me back to getting my game good again? It was him. In a lot of ways, I was even, being in a relationship for 3 years, I was even forgetting how valuable the success with women topics are. I was literally beginning to forget that. I was like, you know, is this just guys out to bang girls? And then when I lost my girlfriend, who I really was into, it was kind of scary because it was like, well, will I ever meet somebody like this again? And funny enough, I mean, I've dated like piles of girls since then, and developed quite the little, you know, situation back in LA and even all over the country with all these amazing women that I'm dating. And then recently I've been spending time with this one girl who's probably the most amazing woman I've ever met, and really resonates with where I'm at. She runs multiple businesses, probably a little bit smarter than I am in a lot of areas, probably more grounded than I am, perfect body, wonderful person, and it just blows my fucking mind. I'll go hang out with her before I go do free tours. I show up at free tour, I just fucking rip it. And it's because she infuses me with that type of energy. So it's even getting to the point where I don't even care if it's like the hottest girl anymore. I love like quality women, intelligent women, and sexual women, and grounded women, how they affect me. Like that's kind of like what I'm getting out of it after I went on this like rampage of like 21 to 23-year-olds for like quite a while. Like all these like different Instagram girls I dated and stuff. So I know you guys are like, oh, poor you, right? You know, but that's fun. But like I'm even getting a whole other level of feminine energy out of it. And Julien was the guy that got me back on track after my fucking crisis with the breakup and helped me, and I'm seeing like the value in what he's teaching. And I would even watch a lot of my own old pickup videos to put myself back on track with mentalities that I forgot. And so like I see what we're teaching as far as that, and also the overall becoming a man in your prime concept and the personal development side and inspiring people. And I think to myself, God, this is amazing. And I'm just lucky to even be able to do this type of work. So it got me back focused on that, and just like it took away the bullshit. It's like, who cares what people are saying? It doesn't matter what people say. Like just some fucking random person just looking to make a spectacle out of what you're doing. That's not the issue. The issue is actually the people that you're directly impacting and how you're growing. And literally just blocking that out with horse blinders, not even getting affected by it. I can honestly say that since that shit happened to you, that I could pretty much look at almost anything someone is saying, and I'm numb to it. Like it doesn't even make an impact. It's kind of cool. It's a nice feeling. It's a nice feeling to like see a bunch of low vibration, just nonsense, and literally just be able to be like, whatever. And it's the same thing even with like my game, right? It's like instead of like this low vibration, like, oh, should I approach, should I not, like, and like mental discipline, I don't really feel like I use a lot of willpower anymore. A lot of my life got kind of effortless after all this. It was a strange thing. And I think that like, if you guys ever heard me saying that I was naturally depressed, you remember I've made like hard case newbie videos? Like back in the day when I first started, my general happiness level was around a 2. And the reason why my like kind of happiness set point was around a 2 was I felt like my mind was just prone to these kind of demons that would be just jumping in, right? Like I'd be like, this isn't good and that's not good and I suck. I just dealt with a lot of depression. And through pickup, I got a lot of momentum. I could kind of like paint over that. But then even since a lot of this stuff happened, I couldn't even paint over it anymore. But it sort of solidified me at around a 7 or an 8 almost permanently. Like permanently at around a 7 or 8 happiness. And from a guy coming from like where I came from, that's like a miracle. And I jumped to a 10 like that. Like I just laugh a lot now. I'm always laughing all the time and having fun. And it's like I feel like a little kid. You know, I mean, this is kind of a serious conversation, right? I'm not as much like that in this moment. But I think when you see me out this week, it's almost like a little kid running around. You know, kind of like just carefree and just laughing and having fun and just being joyful. And I think another thing that I got out of this was like, I realized like, how do I want to live the rest of my life from this point forward? I just want to have joy and fun. You ever see like, any of these like music videos for EDM where people are just like smiling and like jumping in a parachute and dancing and laughing and celebrating and cheering. It's just kind of, and like when you watch it, it almost like, it infuses you with that positivity. I think there's a video called The Nice by Avicii. Anyone ever seen that? You can look that up, right? It's just like this guy, and he's like, he just decides that he wants to have an amazing life. And of course, it's just these cut scenes, and you know, it's a video. It's not real life, but you just see him having fun. I kind of shifted to where like I just want to either be really focused on doing amazing work or just being in a state of joy and laughter. And who here's ever read the book Power versus Force? Anyone ever read that? That's an amazing book. I'd urge you to read that. A lot of these books are a little bit woo-woo. He has like this focus on how like if your arm can move, that means that you're not in your truth and stuff. And I don't really know about that. He's pretty convinced that you could like literally like see if like a politician's telling the truth or not by moving his arm and like all this stuff. And I don't know, right? It's out of my pay grade to know that. But the overall idea of the book was that like low vibration energy, like things like apathy or anger or going to like courage and peace and joy and then love and then, you know, even as high as like enlightenment and so on and so forth, it's actually like an energy field that you're kind of moving through. And I felt like for me, like back in the day, I would have been more like an apathy. Now, do you guys notice too how in the mainstream media, most people at the mainstream, what are they at? Typically apathy. So the reason why they generate towards like stories like that silly Julien thing is it creates like fucking like discontent and anger, and it actually spikes them, right? Because somebody in apathy, it's hard to move them right to joy. It's too much of a gap. You guys following this? It's actually too much of a gap to take somebody from apathy, like this, just like this numb, apathetic feeling, all the way up to love and joy. Like, do you guys really think that the news could infuse the average populace with love and joy or enlightenment? Right? It'd be hard to do. But they can take them from apathy to anger. And that's why things that typically are like outrageous or make you angry, they spread, right? Like outrage. You know, like if you want to get a viral video, create outrage as he did, right? Like you create outrage. So people like share, like, ugh, like that. And they're almost feeling more awake out of it is what's going on. If we were to see social change, we need to move people past just moving from apathy to anger, but move them into things like courage and pride and joy and love. But that's pretty ambitious, obviously, right? That's not going to happen overnight anytime soon. But that's what the book Power versus Force essentially talks about. So kind of like the recommitments that I made after this was to move into joy and to move into love. So essentially me not being like, okay, I'm fucking pimp some hoes, you know, right? Even though I'm out, I'm gaming harder than I've ever gamed in my life. And I'm going to talk to you guys about that. Like I've never gamed this hard. I'm doing daytime approaches, nighttime approaches. I'm on like 1 or 2 dates a day. I've got like all these amazing girls that I'm dating, prettiest girls, smartest girls I've ever dated in my life. I'm gaming that hard, but I'm not coming from that space of like, you know, like look at this, like I got it down, I got to get this. I'm actually really taking women in a way that I never have. Like in my view, when I take in women, I'm really taking, like as ridiculous as this sounds, I feel like women, if you actually think about it, as much as we as guys want to be like in a locker room and be like, fuck the girl, right? In a lot of ways, what is that? That's going from like some low apathetic level to like raw, right? It's like you're spiking yourself up. But at your highest level, when you really think about it, like what do you actually get from women? I could honestly say that like the women in my life have been some of the most important people that I've ever met. And the reason why is women have a sort of feminine essence that can infuse you with things that you're missing. And I don't think a man can be at his best or can be whole without having experienced women like that in his life. So again, I'm still pimping, but it's from a different space, right? It's coming from a different vibration. It's coming from a different space. And so, you know, between that and being joyful and having my mind just kind of operating the way that I've always wished it would, I feel like this has been the most transformative year of my entire life. And I feel like things are just accelerating at this amazing rate. So I guess I just love talking about it because I'm really excited and optimistic about the future. And even the business, which grew so much this year, like our business, like we have, I mean, our revenues and our customer base is growing more than ever. It's kind of crazy. We've come out of this like just shining. It's been amazing. It's almost like God intended the whole fucking thing or something. Like it gave us the strength that we needed. And now, and I mean, maybe I'm delusional on this, probably am, but you know, it's like, I feel like it's like God just came, gave us the experience that we needed to move forward, and that we're just moving forward with like the new knowledge. And it's like, what was core to what made us good We've kept that and we've refocused on it. And the stuff that was the excess, we've had it shed. And maybe that will have to continue to happen. I'm not saying that we're not going to have more headaches like this and things that force us to dig even deeper. But it basically like refocused us and got us mission centered and forced us to dig deeper. And so it's been such a pleasurable experience. And it was kind of neat that Julien and I kind of experienced this like around the same time as a shared experience that we like kind of experienced as brothers. And it's been amazing, right? Like the whole thing, it's like really living life, you know, not just living life like kind of not trying. Because essentially when you put yourself out there, you're exposed. Like when you put yourself out there the way that we have and the way that many of you want to do and are doing, you're exposing yourself to these crazy things, right? And people will say like, take the risk, nothing is gained if you don't take the risk. But people forget to say like, yo, when you take that risk, it actually might go really fucking bad. But no one ever talks about that. They just talk about the upside. But we've experienced some of the downsides of it. But what's amazing is that through those downsides, if you make the decision to let go of those dopamine spikes and ego and distraction, and you use those to recenter yourself on core values and to focus on contribution and to like let that energy, like to let that present, contributive, loving, joyful energy infuse you, and to get better, not bitter, and you move forward, it can actually deepen the roots so that the tree can grow taller, because the tree can only grow in proportion to the roots. So what ends up happening is that you're moving up and up and up and up, and you just see that spark in the eyes grow. So I think like for Julien and I, one of our main goals like in our video content is like even as we age, you're seeing guys with that bright spark in the eye and dynamic and engaged and fluid and learning and growing and moving forward and present and infusing that energy in the people that are watching our stuff. And that's kind of like our mission. We do that in our pickup stuff, but we also do that in our teaching. And that's like our goal, right? And we're just young teachers. I mean, you know, truly world-class teachers, in my opinion, they start to come into their truly world-class teaching like 40s, 50s, 60s. And we've always kind of taken the long view of this, of what it would take to be like truly world-class teachers as we age, just by teaching all the time and adding value. But that was kind of like the experience that, you know, that I had out of it. And I don't know if you have, I mean, I've covered a lot here. I love to talk way too much, but if you want to sort of cover any more.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. I went through it too. Some of the life views that I have now, and, you know, they sound a little corny, but the first one is you can't fuck up this life. Like that saying is like anchored in. It's like no matter what you do, and that's the thing with risk. It's like, should I do it? Should I not do it? What's the right thing to do? What's the right thing to do? It doesn't matter. It's like either you take the risk and from whatever label you place upon it, it goes well. But even if it doesn't, and that's the lesson here, it's like you'll still learn from it. It's what you needed. No matter what you do, no matter what you choose, it's the right choice. Even if it goes down, it's leading you back to where you should go anyway. There is no fucking up. And just accepting that, like, just takes away so much pressure. Like, we all have that universal question, am I doing it right? Yeah, you are. No matter what you do, you'll do it right. And just gone. And that's really the state I'm in now. It's like, even sitting here, extremely at ease, extremely relaxed. There's zero, again, like impurity. There's zero, okay, what's that? What am I going to say next? Oh my God, am I cueing the content correctly? Oh my God, what are people thinking? Oh, is recording the video? Oh, what are people going to think of the video? Oh my God, am I tired? Oh, it's all is good. It's like that full-on self-acceptance, but then again, of course, coming from that place, you get back in touch with the core and you keep pushing. But it's pushing from that generative state of mind versus taking, self-image, petty, impure. And what I would say too is even say in relationships, you kind of start noticing like, oh, you know, like say low vibration stuff, but it's not so much like, oh, whatever. It's like you can actually see through it and your relationships grow because you can actually get in touch with whatever high vibration is left in the other person. It's like you see through right to their fucking core. And this has affected, again, in going out and interacting with women, I mean, my results too have been like through the roof. And it's not even that I'm doing anything special, it's just that I see that, and when you see someone for who they truly are, it's like no one really sees that. It's like we're all caught up in so much bullshit, and of course you see the bullshit in the other people. And when they meet someone who can like see them for who they truly are, see through the bullshit, inspire them to summon that part of their personality and who they are out, I mean, that's what makes for the best interactions. And you've all experienced that. You've all experienced an interaction where, say you're sitting with a friend late at night, say one of your close friends late at night, and you start talking, start getting extremely deep. Do you guys ever get that? Where you just start opening up in a way and just really laying it all out there. Your ego's put to the side, and it's just like this relief. And it's like those conversations, those are the memorable ones. Those are the ones you live for. Those are the ones that generate something, that put out like this amazing energy in the world. And just in terms of women, it's like, that's what the interactions are now. You summon that out, it's like, it's the most amazing experience ever. You do that on a larger scale, you do it in videos, you do it in even this video here, like this conversation. That's what it's doing, it's generating. There's no taking. There's no ego, there's no self-image. Again, it's like, this is the most humble, real, honest you could ever be, and that's what makes it so epic. And that's why most likely, even though, again, it's like, you don't go through any like media thing or stuff like that, it's like you can probably connect with this on a deep, deep, deep level. Because it hits you at that core, it reminds you of that core. It gets you thinking, it gets you questioning on what's the bullshit layers around it. And when you're faced, again, in those traumatic situations, instead of getting bitter, as he said, ask yourself what's to take out of it. What is being, like, what impurity is being attacked through this?
You're at a choice point when you do that. You're at a key choice point to move into the light or to go into bullshit. You're at a key choice point right there. Are you gonna look at the larger, bigger picture of why what's happening is meant to happen and is gonna be amazing? Or are you just going into bitterness and getting more caught up in this fucking maze of your head that's just actually infusing you with negativity?
And you really have to let go. It's like, just let it go. And again, you've heard this many times before, embrace change. We all try to latch on to different moments, different identities. It's like, let it go. Let even the old you, let that impurity go. Let it die. Forget about it. And again, it's not betraying yourself. It's like we always try to like hang on to everything that we are. It's like, no, just be flexible. Move on, grow, expand, progress. That's the reason you're here. That's what makes you feel good. That's what inspires and makes for like an amazing world. So, I mean, I don't know if that's my view right now. And yeah, I mean, similar to you, like this is the happiest I've been probably ever, in all honesty. And going through it was probably the worst I've ever felt, ever. Like there's no low point. There's nothing lower than what I've been through. At least, again, mentally and just in terms of everything. Physically, not so much, but in terms of who I am. And once you go through that and you choose to go up, it's like, I would not change it or for anything. It's like, that was, the most enlightening in a way experience ever.
Because it feels like it's waking you up from a dream. Is the best way I could describe it to you. You feel more awake. That's what you'll find as you evolve, is that you look at previous years as though it was a dream, and you feel more awake. And you'll continue to feel that way more and more, I think, with every year, if you're on a path of progression in personal development and whatnot.
So, yeah, I mean, that'd be it. It's like, embrace all experiences. Don't be afraid of the risk. Whatever you decide to do, as long as, once again, it's that choice. You decide to not get bitter, you decide to get better. Whatever happens, just leading you in that right direction. Either it goes well, again, well, awesome. Either it goes poorly, awesome as well. And once you come at that, it's like, you just start enjoying it all. And both are amazing. It's like, even the lows, like what's necessarily bad about them? Nothing, it's just a different emotion, a different feeling. The only thing that's really bad is whatever label you place upon it. If everything was just like fun and chill and there was not these traumatic moments, life would be very bland and boring. You need the ups, you need the lows. I just view it as interesting. It's like, just be more objective and welcome all experiences. It's like, yeah, we went through this, again, on an extremely, way too large of a scale, but take the lessons. It's like, that's what we got out of it, and that's what you should get out of it. It's like, you look at it, and again, it's like, you can read into the story, you can read all the comments, like, oh my God, that's crazy, but the real value is this here. And see how it can apply to your life. And once again, it's like, put yourself out there. That's the real one for me. It's like, again, take that positive attitude, ask yourself what's the garbage, what's taking, what's giving, and from there, just start taking risks. Put yourself out there. That's the biggest one. It's like, keep putting yourself out there. Keep expanding, and what you think is discomfort, what you think is bad, in reality, that's where you feel good. That's where you're growing. That's where you're expanding. If you cut that off, and you go back to stagnating, because you cut off that source of, say, fulfillment, the only place you'll find joy and happiness is in the taking. That's really it. You're in your comfort zone, you're not expanding. The only way you can feel good is those dirty highs of dopamine hit, is the dirty highs of just taking. Get off that. Decondition yourself from that. Get out of your comfort zone. Start taking the risks. You may not like it at first, and it doesn't sound very pleasant. Like, go where it's uncomfortable. And again, it's like if you're used to the highs, it's not going to be as intense. But once you're hooked on that, you're hooked on the internal fulfillments, you'll never go back. And you'll never want to go back. There is no finish line. This is the whole saying, life is a journey, not a destination. It's about the growth and the internal fulfillment you get from putting yourself out there day after day after day after day after day. And lastly with this message here, it's like, be inspired to do that. Inspire other people to do that. If we can change the conversation, not just in our pickup world, but just outside of this in life in general, and everyone can just keep putting themselves out, it's like that's how you really leave an impact in a way, as cheesy as it sounds, changes the world.